Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today I have the opportunity to work on a reel that John sent in. This is a Shimano Sustain 6000 FD. This one's, well, got some mileage on it. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be taken apart, cleaned, and serviced, which is what John has asked me to do. And, well, that's the subject of our video today, is how to take apart, clean, relubricate, and service the Shimano Sustain 6000 FD, like fire department. But we can see it's got a lot of use on this. It's got dried grease and that on the axle shaft. And, well, we're going to take care of all of that. We start by removing the exterior pieces and parts. And as we do, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel, particularly if you like the art of reel service and repair, but also if you'd like to learn about fishing reels, how they're made, and, well, how they're serviced and kept running for a long time to go, and how they're repaired when they break. Those are all subjects of the videos that I do, and I hope to pass along what I know to you as part of the videos. Well, we're just going to take off some of this old grease, just using a paper towel right now. And that's likely just kind of leached out from the case, because normally you do not put grease on that portion of the axle shaft. Next, we're going to remove the lower case. I'll start by taking off the little throw arm here. Sometimes you can work the bump guard out without removing that piece. Other times you need to remove it, and that's the case right now. You need to remove this piece. It's held in by a small Phillips head screw. I'll take that out. It's a small screw head, but a long screw length. And I want to encourage you, as you do these repairs or removals or just tune-ups or whatever it is that you may be involved with on the reel, that you take pictures as you are taking the reel apart. And actually, if you want to front end do a little prep work, go get the schematic for this reel. That schematic will give you a view into, well, what's coming when you start to take the reel apart. When I take the pieces off, I put them into a parts tray. My parts tray is, well, it's just a four-cornered variety of a fast food container. You can use whatever you like. In the past, I've used milk containers, I've used coffee cans, and the like. There's a lot of different ways that you can organize your pieces and parts. I encourage you to kind of think about that before you start pulling them off. Otherwise, you'll wind up with what I call reel-in-a-bag projects. You've got them apart, but you don't quite remember if you got all the pieces and parts, and you don't quite remember where they go. Probably one of the biggest mistakes made. Well, again, you can see it's a reel that's been around a while. The bump guard shows significant wear, scratches, and the like. What little kind of plating or whatever this is, finish is worn, but that doesn't mean that the reel can't be used. And we're going to take care of that. All right, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 case screws. So we had to remove the bump guard to get to that 4th screw, otherwise you wouldn't be able to take your case off. And I believe this has got one where the case tucks up under the rotor, so we'll take the rotor off next. There's a set screw that holds that down, and then typically you're going to need a deep socket to go in and get the rotor nut on these. Now, this has a shallow lip, so it is possible that you could reach that with an open-end wrench, but since I keep my deep ratchets close by, I'm just going to go ahead and take advantage of that. Once you break that hold of that rotor nut, it comes off pretty easily. Again, just keep those in your parts tray. And what I'm going to do with that ratchet is just leave that kind of right attached to that, so that when it comes time to reinstall, I know where that is. Check your bail, make sure that it flips nice and easy. We'll remove the rotor. When we do that, we're going to take some penetrating oil, and we're just going to put a little bit of oil onto the seams on both sides. If your bail is working fine, there's no need for you to go ahead and remove the bail. I just had a fellow sent me in pretty much a new reel. They had done some work I wanted to re-lube and re-grease. Took the bail assembly apart and couldn't figure out how to put it back together again. Again, if it's snapping back fine, no need to do any of that. I put the smaller pieces and parts into the parts tray, but the larger parts, you're not going to lose them, so there's no need to worry that terribly. This is always interesting because you want to figure out which ones of these actually are connected to the case and which ones of these are actually holding the tie-down piece. And I'm not sure, so we're going to start. They're usually in a triangular pattern. And we'll know the first one you take out, if it's a short screw, yeah, that's a short screw. So that is not the one that's holding the assembly to the case, so leave those in. I would say that the one on the outside of that should be a longer screw. And it is, and that's the one that's attaching to the case. So you want to remove the long screws, but not the short screws in this assembly. So I'm not sure because of the way that this is set up, but here's the second long screw. I'll assume that that's another short case screw. Let's see if this is the next long one. It is. And I'm not sure if it's just 3, it probably is 4. This one probably needs to come out as well. You want to pay attention when you're removing these clutches. Again, these are kind of free setup clutches with springs in them. If you pull that top off, this is a case seal, it just came off. If you pull that top off, well, those bearings can shoot out and take a walk on you. You really don't want to do that. The other thing you want to notice, we have an AR override position here, but apparently, yeah, that'll be controlled from underneath here. So you probably want to mark your case. Okay, this is what I was looking for. On the back end, we have an opening with that AR. It's right here. It's hard to see with that piece, but this is the opening. Take a look at your reel handle. Make that 12 noon. That's where the opening for the bearing is going to go. And at 3, and at 9, that's where those fixed screws are going to remain. We can pull that off now. You don't service that bearing. That's a friction-driven clutch. You just let that go. With that off now, we should be able to remove the case screws. As I mentioned, there's 4 of those. Set that aside for a moment. Again, the big pieces, I don't worry terribly about those falling away. One thing you might want to worry about, there is a spring here, so be careful as you're working with this not to dislodge that spring. It can shoot, and if it shoots, well, you get to play Sherlock Holmes. Try and figure out where it went. All right. When I take these case screws out, I put them side by side. I want to make sure they're all the same length. If they're not the same length, I want to identify where that short one or long one, or like this one's a short one and it's coming out from underneath the bump guard there. And Shimano's notorious for that. Shimano just likes to change up screw lengths and diameters on their spinning reel cases. Alright, there's 3 that are the same and 1 short one above that. So mark that in your mind. Write it down on paper. Take a picture. Yeah, I take pictures. I'm taking pictures with the video camera right now. But if you get stumped, that's where the short one goes. This case should pull off from the other side now. Just like that. And here's something that's a little bit interesting with this reel. And what's interesting here is that you have a bushing, not a bearing, on the inside of this. And a lot of old grease. I'm going to take a moment here to get rid of the old grease. I'm going to use a paper towel to wipe as much of that off as I can. I'll do the top too. This reel was a little bit noisy. That's understandable. And what we basically have is either a lack of grease or we have old dried grease running around in there. So take your time. Pull that out. I'm using a bristle brush here to pull through on your teeth. Make sure that these are all in good condition, that they're not bent, chipped, or cracked. I know for those of you that watch hear me say that quite frequently, but I just came across a reel that was binding, and the reason it was binding was a chipped tooth. Put that right there for a moment. Just checking. So this has got a ball bearing on the one side, but not the other. That's kind of curious. This one has two tabs on it, this bushing. It's a plastic bushing. Notice that the tabs stick out, and they're going to go into a slot in that side case. Next up, we want to remove the carrier pin here. That's housing a pawl that's riding on a worm gear track. So hold on that, again, into the parts tray. That's a very small piece, you don't want to lose that. Then we have a clip that's holding this on. And it's covered in grease, and I'm having a little bit of a hard time getting that off there. There we go. Then we want to pull the screw off the bottom case here, because that's holding the shaft that this is riding on. And again, take the pictures. It gets complicated as you start to pull out a lot of pieces. And for example, this is a wider head screw than this one is. We can pull that out. And then this carrier here is going to come down and out. Then you can rotate and flip. Whoop, you need the other one off too. So they look the same, but just keep in mind that they may not be the same. And if they're not the same, you're going to need to change that up. Take a quick look here. We have two more screws that are holding this assembly on. Those carriers and put those in. Take my plate and my two screws. Find another portion of my parts tray for those. And two more screws need to be removed so that we can take the axle shaft out. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, you're curious about how all of this works, this has got a worm drive that works the oscillation. But if you have broader questions, leave them in the comment section. I do try to answer those as part of my morning routine before I get into the shop to do some work. Okay, I think we got the second one out, not sure. Nope, not quite yet. This little block wants to be stubborn. Okay, we have the two screws out. Now we can remove the axle shaft from the block. Pinion gear in its assembly. There's a bearing that comes in here as well, and I'm not sure if this slides out or not. Ah, that's held in up there. going to hose the rest of this down. It's a worm gear and it's a transfer gear. Going to use the penetrating oil to clean those parts, get the old greases out of here, and pull that out. This is your worm gear. There's a little bushing on the end of that. And you can see just a bunch of old dried grease and dirt in there. That's the whole idea behind servicing a reel. Get rid of the old dirt and debris. Make sure that you clean it up and put in fresh greases and oils. Okay. Case has been cleaned. Let's go back in. I did leave the top gear in. You want to put a little light coating of grease onto your worm gear, not a lot. Bring that back up through the hole in the case. Bring that in. That's going to merge in with that small gear up top there. And you need to merge the gear back into the track so that your worm gear is turning. Then remember we had that little plastic piece below. There is a tab on there that sits into the square of the case, so make sure that that seats down nicely. Let's go over to this assembly. This is the one that has the pawl in it. I'm going to push that pawl out, because there's a lot of grease on this one as well. When you do this kind of work, you want to make sure you bring along a case of patience. You need a lot of that to do this work right. It's not hard, but it's something you need to do. When you clean off that pawl, check to make sure that it is clean shoulders, just like you would a bait caster or a level line reel. Get the old dirt off of there and make sure that the shoulders are nice and clean. And it reseats this way. Remember, we have the tie down here that will hold that into place. Okay, that's in. You can put a drop of oil on that. And then we have our case bearing here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take that bushing. Remember what we said, you got a bushing here that's got those two little slots in it. They go at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Seat that into the case here. Sometimes easier said than done. And when you get it back in, make sure it's flush to the sides here. Let's take care of the pinion gear. Okay, this is an open bearing. I don't normally use greases in bearings, but on open bearings I do. So the first thing I'm going to do is spin it, make sure that we're okay. Now we're going to reload with fishing reel grease. Before I do that, we'll take a moment here to clean out the pinion gear. And Shimano, of course, has made a lot of nice reels. This design is very similar to the ones that is in Stella. So if you're servicing any of these, you know that Stratic and others share this design. And well, if you can service one, the pieces and parts may be a little bit bigger, but for the most part you can service them all. I think the hardest issue I ever had to deal with these was that plastic transfer gear up there. It's driven by the pinion gear here. And I had one that had a broken tooth on it, and well, that explains why I'm leaving this in place. It's just not an easy piece to take out. Okay, I'm loading both of the sides of this with fishing wheel grease. Again, it's an open case, there's no seals on it. And this one, I think, when I was listening, it seemed like there was a little bit of noise coming from it. So we'll just go ahead and put that on heavily greased. You don't need to do anything with that plastic gear there, as that gear is self-lubricating. Take the small gear that's going to go in the housing and oil that one. I said gear, I meant bearing. Then you got to seat this one first, otherwise you're not going to get the other piece to lay in. I just dropped my worm gear out, that's okay. Put it back. Like I said, you got to come with a caseload of patience when you do a reel like this. Okay, that's in flat. We're going to go grab this, put that back in again. I couldn't seal that up yet because, well, there we go. You have to rotate it to pull that in under the case. Is that pushing back again? And as I said, I couldn't put that other cover back on here because the work wasn't done. We've got to put the post in on both sides. All right, that's in. You can bring this in. I'm going to hold that now so it doesn't pop out again. Bring this down, merge it, and make sure you get into that. That turns nice and free and easy now. Now we can take a moment here to bring our axle shaft back in. Just a light coating of grease on that axle shaft. Anything more rubs off as you go through the pinion gear. Now it's time to take our assembly. Place that on. And remember which side those screws came out of. They were on the underside. Don't be afraid to lay your tools down, take a break. Some of these get very long because it is an intricate process. So take a break. There's no rewards for speed. You just need to do it right, not do it fast. All right, bring that over. Now we should be able to flip the gate this way. Looks like the pole slipped out when I flipped the gate, so grab that pole again. Reseat that. Okay, with the pole reseated, let's get the little top cover to that. And sometimes this stuff gets a little crazy because, well, I got big hands. So if I drop things in the well here, you'll understand why. Okay. Fortunately, I think we caught a break there. All right, now we have our two posts. Those are the guides for that assembly. Clean those off. The top part has that little indent there on a stud. You may need the assist of pliers to get those properly seated. Make sure that it is flush to the bottom of the case. The other one comes up through the guide on the other side. Same idea. And then once that is done, you can take your plate and the same idea. We have 2 small screws that go along with that. Remember what we said, the right hand side had a thick head screw. The left hand side had a thinner one, or a smaller diameter one. This is the last part where you really need to just kind of think through it, hold your breath kind of stuff. Mostly it's about dropping these small pieces and parts, for me anyway. Just finish up tightening them once you've started them. And then you can test again, make sure everything's working the way it should. Okay, time to reinstall that main gear. We've cleaned it, we haven't lubricated it. And you'll notice that there is not a gear on the back here. And that's because the plastic gears up top are driving the oscillation worm gear, causing that to go up and down with the spool. So it kind of works like a line guide on a bait casting reel, the difference being that instead of moving the line guide assembly left and right, this is moving the axle shaft up and down. Pretty smart. That's done. I think we've oiled this case once before, but let's do that again. We can bring our case over and close that up. Nice tight seam. Make sure you hear or see that it's tight all the way around. We've got 3 screws that are longer, 1 screw that is shorter. Do you remember where the short screw goes? If not, check your pictures. This is a test. Here's the short one over here in the back. And generally speaking, I like to alternate the sides where these are attached just to keep the tension correct on the reel itself. So we'll kind of go east, west, north, south. And one more coming up. All right, moving along. It always helps to give it a little test, make sure that it's spinning before you go tightening anything else up. All right, let's find that clutch. Again, that's a friction-driven clutch. You don't do anything with that. You can wipe it clear. You do not oil it. Oil takes away from the friction. This is what we were looking for in terms of the override. We said that belonged at 12 noon over here. So bring that in. There's a little bit of grease on that carrier, so let's get that off of there. That doesn't belong there. It's about time for a new towel, too. I think we got our money's worth out of this one. Okay, bring that in. Put this on. Bring your carrier over, get that down. There's a shim wash that goes on top of that. Let's not lose that. Then look in the back, make sure that you are merged in here. If you're merged in, the next 4 screws should be pretty easy. We've got the one. We'll tie down right now, and just like the case screws, we're going to kind of rotate on this. And one more. All right, well, I had mentioned taking a break. We're going to take a break for just a moment here. We'll be right back. Finish the assembly of this reel. Okay, let's pick the assembly back up then. We've oiled the tail wire. We didn't oil the line roller, so let's do that. We'll take the rotor and install that now. Back to our rotor nut. That came off in a traditional counterclockwise manner. But be careful, a lot of these reels do not. And a lot of these have a reverse thread. So just pay attention when you're taking these rotors off to make sure that you're turning it in the right direction. All right, let's reverse the throw. Give it a spin. Make sure everything's turning nicely now. Yeah, it is. Okay. All right. Next up then, we want to put the bump guard back on. As I mentioned, we had that seal. You saw that kind of laying on the desk. All good now. Make sure that it seats nice and tight. We want to take our two small screws. The smallest of the two goes up here. Funny what you remember. I remember this one had the flat-bladed screw tip. The other one goes on this side. Pull it up tight so that you can get to the hole. Well, if you're still with me, I want to encourage you to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I hope you're finding these interesting. Some are take longer than others. There's a reason why that happens. Some are relatively simple, others, well, not so simple. Okay, we want to load this on now. We have that long screw that goes in there. And that's a stainless steel screw. That's nice to see because it's exposed to the water. There's a lot of times you'll find these lower end overrides that the post just seizes because salt water or something else gets in there. Corrodes it and you can't get the screw out, or you break the screw off, or the shaft that goes through the case rusts, what have you. In this case, that's all good. Okay, good place to test now. Do we have an anti-reverse? We do. Flip the override, and we have an override. All good. Okay. Next up then is the click ratchet that goes on. That'll make the noise when you need a bait alarm. And the spool is letting line out. We have a shim washer that goes next. We have a handle that goes on. I neglected before I put this on to put the stop screw in. So let's see if we can sneak that in behind there, or if I have to take that click off again. That's the value of a parts tray. It kind of lets you know what you may have missed. And right now there's nothing left in that parts tray, which, well, that's a good thing. Okay, one more thing to do here is to work on the drag washers. I'm unsure which one what these are. I think they might be felt. Okay, I believe that it's the 4 flathead screws here that's holding the retaining ring on. Well, after further work, everything had to come off. Wow. This is where I was saying I generally have had this stuff spin spit out on me here. I'm afraid that these are going to be felt washers. That's one of the reasons why I've taken this off, but it turns out that these are hard washers. So you want to make sure that you clean off the inner case, because that's where the dirt and debris is going to accumulate on top dried reels as much as they try to seal them. Make sure you get all that dirt out of there. And then this is a 6 drag system, so you want to wipe off this. This is a kind of a hard plastic or a graphite kind of a washer, so it's not going to be absorbing anything, so no need to oil them. You have 2 keyed washers. They have rectangular centers. They go high and low after you wipe them off. The middle washer is called an eared washer. It has 2 points and a circular center. Those go into slots inside this spool. One more of these. And here's a word of caution. Don't try to check for this being brittle by kind of snapping it. You will snap it, and there's no recovery from that other than replace it again. Okay, back with that. Those are all cleaned. Bring this back up. Get these aligned. I'm going to start with the flathead one. That should hold them all down. I don't know why they put all of these screws in here. There's got to be an easier way to do this. Maybe that's the version after the FD version. Okay. The ones with the taper holes are the ones that are accepting the flathead screws. I'm wondering if this top end is a color-coded trim piece. So if you use the spool on a different reel, you could have gold, but maybe that one becomes red or blue or gold or something else as an accent piece. Got to be a reason why they have those 2 pieces there. Okay, I'm going to tell John he needs to change out this line. You can see how this line is curling off the spool. That means it's old. It's got memory in it. It's kind of wanting to curl up on you. Okay, that's 2, 4 more to go. Wow. Lots of screws. Quite an engineering piece here. This might go under the category of how to make things complicated that don't need to be. And again, I was more concerned that this would have the felt washers in it. Shimano used felt washers on a lot of reels. And if those dry out and you don't take the time to do this, you're going to tear those up and you're going to lose your drag. All right, 2 more it looks like. Of course, we have a runaway screw here. One just left the building, or at least left the table. We'll get it. Okay, almost getting back to the point where it's time to road test this. Last screw. That guy just doesn't want to go on. what did we do? We really did take this reel completely apart. Look at every piece and structure and the drive system and the way that the reel was manufactured. We had a couple of questions in there. Why do you put a bushing on the back end of that? You clearly put enough effort and energy and everything else into making this reel work. You would think you would put a bushing on the back end. You wouldn't put that bushing back in there. You would kind of opt for another bearing. But they decided that's probably not what they wanted to do. All right. Wipe out the inside of the spool. Looks like there's a little bit of something going on in there that stayed around a while. Let's bring the spool back on. This line doesn't want to play nice. All right, this goes on. Last piece on the table is this tension adjuster, aka drag knob. Time to give it a test. Took the reel apart completely. We showed you the key aspects of it from a manufacturing standpoint. We show you where to oil and grease and lube. Neglected to tell you this is a screw that allows you to put a drop of oil or two onto that worm gear. You should take advantage of that, if nothing else, to keep your reel spinning nicely. I showed you the oiling of the seams, the oiling of the pail. Well, here we go. Okay. I got a click because this tag end right there is bumping this rotor guard, but other than that, runs nice and easy, free and smooth. Got a lot of dirt out of that. Bail clicks. This one's ready to go fishing again. I hope you've enjoyed that. It's been a long while. If you're still with me, thank you for watching. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. I want to thank you for hanging around. Thank you for watching. Appreciate your comments. And again, if you haven't subscribed and you're already here, just take a moment to do it. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll be notified of when I'm posting new videos that you may wish to see. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.